Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Life Process podcast. My name is Teresa McCloy, and I am so excited to be with you here again this week. We are just about a week out of my new book releasing, Do What Matters, Live from Rest, Not Rush. And if you haven't picked up a copy of that book, we encourage you to do so. And you can find it at all the retailers now. It's actually out. It's been birthed into the world, released, and we are so excited about that. We are in the middle of doing some group coaching sessions together. And so if you're listening to this in real time, just make sure you're on our email list so you can find out all about those group coaching sessions on Tuesday evenings that we are doing here through the month of November 2022. I am super excited about this episode because this is a first here on the podcast. You know that one of our core values is to be real. And so today we're going to be real because I have my husband, Dale McCloy, on the podcast. Welcome, Dale.
Hi.
It's great to have you here. And you can see, a little shy. So you want to try. Welcome, Dale.
I am here and I'm ready.
Okay, so we are excited. I just asked him this afternoon. We're actually recording on a Sunday evening. And I just asked him this afternoon, hey, would you come and be on the podcast with me? Because I talk about you all the time on the podcast. I talk about our family, talk about Allie, our dog, and everyone knows that we live on a farm in Southern Illinois. And so because of the book coming out, I just thought it'd be fun to invite Dale onto the podcast. This is totally out of his element and his comfort zone, but he's willing to try new things. So thanks for being with me. And I'm just going to ask him some questions, let you guys get to know him a little bit more. You'll read about his and I's story together and our daughter Annika and our son Eric in the book that we have written. But I'm just going to ask Dale some things and he's going to jump in. One of his questions was, now, how long is this? And I said, we'll go about 20 minutes or so. So here we go. We're going to dive in. Are you ready, Dale?
I am ready.
Okay, here we go. So let me give you a little backstory. Dale actually is it fourth generation or fifth generation? Fourth generation. Family farm. Our daughter Annika and our son-in-law Justin would be fifth generation. So just picture the family farm. It's the only place that Dale has ever lived. And so I just thought, if you don't know anything about farming, I just wanted to ask Dale, what do you love about farming?
Well, it's just a lifestyle that is unlike others that I have ever known. That I remember a first grade teacher asking us, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, a farmer. And I'm probably the only one in the class that did exactly what I said I was going to do. Like Teresa said, I am a fourth generation, and Annika will be the fifth. And she shows interest, and her husband, in operating our farm someday. So I hope that comes to pass.
So Dale and I have been married, or will be married, 40 years. Here in just a couple of weeks, we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary. And when we got married, Dale actually built a brand new home for us that we've now been in 40 years. And so we've lived on this farm our whole entire married life. And as he said, you know, one of our hopes and dreams is to pass that farm on to the next generation. And we actually talk about that in the book. We talk about that our son, Eric, if you've listened to the podcast, you know that we lost our son, Eric, at the age of 30 in 2017 to addiction. And, you know, he had been raised his whole entire life to kind of take over the farm and be a part of the farm operation. And, you know, just that idea that plans don't always go exactly as you had planned for them to. And, you know, that was something that we had to adjust to, something that we had to grow accustomed to. It's not going to just be exactly the way we had planned. But Dale, share just a little bit, if you don't mind being vulnerable, just even when Eric passed away in 2017 and we kind of knew that loss of a dream was not, how did you adjust to that as far as looking at the farm and continuing to look at the growth of the farming operation?
Well, that was real devastating blow to lose your son, who you had taught and trained to do the work that you do. I remember a day, though, when I said to Annika, when she was struggling with what occupation she was wanting to be, I said, "Have you ever considered farming?" And she just kind of looked at me blankly. But as she grew older and realized that, yes, there was a place there for her, especially after she married the young man that she married.
Yeah. So, just like many of you and many of you as listeners share with me, and I oftentimes share with Dale that, our best laid plans, the things that we've dreamed and hoped for and hope to come true in our businesses, in our life, aren't always exactly the path that God takes us on. We talk about that. I talk about that in the beginning chapters of the book, that we had to make some tough decisions, even in that farming operation and in that business operation. But, and we understand that story. And we've had many people reach out to us to say, yeah, that was a tough time. And even when I talk about why is my business called the real life process, it's because, real life is just that. It is something that we never know what's coming and what might be next. But I want to shift gears just a little bit as we talk about putting the book out there. And not only has this been my journey to tell the story of just my own transformation, my workaholic tendencies, and how I found a rule of life and a process that would work for me to live from rest, not rush. One of the things I had to do as I was putting together this book is to ask permission and just say, "Hey, Dale, is this okay that I tell our story?" And also ask my daughter, "Is it okay that I share our story in written form that's going to be out there forever?" And I just thought it would be interesting, maybe from a spouse's perspective, for people to hear why that mattered to you and why it was okay, as my husband, for me to share our story, because it is our story.
Well, it would seem like a natural progression to me because we were quite involved in church. And because of that, we could see that this was something that we could help other people by sharing our experiences and by just being able to reach out to them and help them down that journey, no matter how difficult it might be.
Yeah, that was something that we talked about, was just what kind of hope would it give to others, not just those families that maybe had lost a child or been in, struggles with addiction, but just even people that wanted to live life a little different. Now, I have to say, to be honest, that Dale is a farmer, and he's one of the types of farmers that he might not leave the farm for 2 or 3 weeks. So when I talk about living from rest, not rush, he kind of looks at me funny because it's how he lives every single day. And his personalities, I love the tool, the Enneagram, and our personalities. I mean, Dale's a 9 on the Enneagram and I'm a 3. So that place of peace for him comes pretty naturally, and that ability to just take life at a very leisurely pace. Now, there's times, right, on the farm when there's work to get done.
Sure, there is. And we work hard when we work. And then there are times when I can relax and enjoy doing other things. So this, Teresa made the book very relevant to the fact that we're all made differently and can work in different ways.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that even as, throughout our marriage, we had to discover and realize is that him and I are very, very different in, and that's part of the growth of a marriage, is to walk through those seasons, just figuring out, what's different. And I've heard several stories just in the past few weeks of people that have reached out to me and just said doing the real life process together, doing all of the components, walking through them together has been impactful for their marriage because it's opened up conversations for them about, what are the things that matter to each of us. Dale and I are in a season now. Our daughter actually will be celebrating her 1-year anniversary about a week from when we're recording this. So we're in a season, many of you would call it empty nest. I have renamed that. I'm calling it open nest because the nest is open. We're in a season, we just talked last night at dinner about, how we want to celebrate our 40th anniversary. What do we see in the next 5 years? So using the process even to talk about the big rocks that matter, the areas of focus, things you're working towards, whether that's financial or spiritual, but you can do the process individually, but then you can come together and have those conversations as well. So lots of different ways that you can use the framework that we've put together. So I got one other question for you, Dale. And you guys, if you saw this on video, I won't tell you on video. We wrote down the questions. We have them on the whiteboard. And I have one more question that I'd like to talk with you about. And this backstory, I don't know that I've shared this on the podcast for a while, but if you're friends with me on the social media platform, Facebook is one of the places where I have a lot of personal friends. And if you're friends with me, you know that every day I take a picture and I post it on Facebook. Sometimes I put it over on Instagram too, but it's always on Facebook. And for almost 1,400 and almost 80 days now, I have been posting a picture. And that comes, and then I write a little something about it. And it's really become almost a daily examine practice, a spiritual practice for me to just say, what was the best moment of today? Who did I get to hang out with? What story did I hear? What did I see in, God's creation? What was the best story from today? And if you are friends with me and you go look at those pictures, you will see lots of pictures of Dale and I together, because that's always a special time when we get to spend time together or go out to dinner or play golf or do whatever it is that we're going to do together. And there's lots of cool things that happen around the farm. And I share lots of pictures from our beautiful farm, just beautiful scenery in all the different seasons. So I call that an extraordinary moment, from ordinary to extraordinary. Here's just an ordinary day, and yet within this ordinary day, there's an extraordinary moment. I actually started that practice about 4 or 5 months, 6 months after Eric passed away. And I thought I would do it for 3 or 4 months till my birthday, and now it's almost 4 years later that I have just been doing that practice. And what I thought I would ask Dale is, what's an extraordinary moment that's happened for you in the past week? What's been something because what's interesting is my family now sometimes will take a picture and send it to me and say, this is the one you could share, or here's the one, whether it's Dale or Annika. So Dale, share with us, how do you see through that lens of an extraordinary moment in the past week?
Well, you told me I couldn't save just being done with harvesting, but that is no doubt my extraordinary moment. Whenever you plant a crop and you see it come up and tend it throughout the season, and you see it grow and ripen, and then the real work of the harvest begins, to see it all come together and to finish strong. That's the goal that every farmer has. And I'm just, it gives you a very good feeling when you wrap that all up.
Yes, it does. So that's your extraordinary moment. Is we finished harvest actually yesterday afternoon. Dale texts me and says, it's all in the wagon. And I knew exactly what that meant was the crops were in. We raise, why don't you tell what kind of crops we raise, Dale? What do we farm?
Well, primarily it's corn, soybeans, and a little bit of wheat. And we do have a few cattle to keep me busy during the off season.
I'm not a fan of the cows, but that's a whole nother podcast episode that we would have. But yeah, so those are the crops that we farm. And so when it gets to that place where if we can be done, sometime around the end of October, 1st of November, we feel like it's been a really good year and God has blessed us and we had a great harvest. And it's interesting because as we're recording this, we're actually a couple days away from the book being released. We're recording it about a week before this episode would come out. So we have wrapping up of harvest all over the place because this has been a season. The book has been about a 2-year journey from beginning to end. I feel in many ways it's just now being birthed out into the world. So there's a lot more to come. So it was a big weekend. It's a big few days to be done with harvest, to be done safely with harvest is always something that we pray and hope for. And without too many things breaking down, we had a pretty rough year this year, actually, with some of those types of things. But that's always an extraordinary moment. So I would say, just how does that play out in your life when you have something big that you have planned, and then how do you celebrate it? How do you remember it? Those are the things that I would ask you as the listener is just, taking the time, taking the pause, and being thankful, being grateful, even as we move towards that season. This is a season for us of a little bit more of that rest season, and we're always grateful for it. We usually try to get away for a few days. You hear me talk about rhythms of rest and renewal and routine, and that's something we're hoping to do. So, Dale, thank you for joining me. I know it was a new experience for you, but you do well, friend.
Thanks.
So I just wanted you to meet my best friend and my partner, Dale McCloy, and just hear a little bit from him, hear his voice, sometimes put a voice with a name, because we do real life and we want to be present with you and walk real life with you. So thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Real Life Process podcast. Remember, go check us out on the website at thereallifeprocess.com. We spell real life with one L, and you can find out about the book. We'll still have links for it there. And if you're interested in knowing more about the process that we talk about in the book, you can find out more about that on our website as well. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. We'll be back next week with more from the Real Life Process podcast.